just write down some notes, guys.
December 14th.
All of them that are long do the same thing. I think we're saying we're just a bunch of people that want the same thing. But I'm not sure. What?
That sounds more like sheep,
Yeah? Oh,
right?
you would think.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for your efforts, for your patience.
Question? Is number 9 still on for the night?
Number 9, yes. It's gonna be a long evening, Fred.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry that it's taken so long,
I'm
believe
missing
me.
any, windows, I'll let you know.
I
Okay.
don't know if this is appropriate, just one further question, the fact that it still needs.
Gonna make it
ZBA
wilder, I live in a
approval, that you
Roscoe
would
farm.
still
It's,
need-
we're
Hearing's
just,
closed, I'm
right.
gonna object to that,
right.
okay?
Come on, yeah. Just, when it comes
Still-
up,
It's still on.
John, I'm not gonna, I can't talk about it, Fred.
It's still on though.
It's still on, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ladies,
Can I ask a question about protocol? I have the
Oh,
first,
thank you.
I have the first, historic, would you prefer that I leave until I can come back then?
That would be great.
let's see, you've got the adjournment on the Joys, right?
Yeah, no, it's the one on, it's the old Court Smith House.
109 Hampton Road.
109 Hampton. What do you want us to do, call you or something? I mean, do you have
Well, if
to,
you want, I wasn't asking for that, but it should be quick.
I don't know,
It's up to you.
well, we've gotta go.
I can go home and have a drink, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Is that gonna be good or bad?
Sodium pentothal might not be a good idea.
But you,
Sodium pentothal might not be a good idea.
you may have to bring rounds for all of us. John, if we didn't have so many here, then I'd move the schedule around, but I think we have to stick to it, because there've been people who've been waiting a long time.
We've already set up a 55-gallon drum and we've got.
Yeah, okay, good.
I'll
All
leave
right,
my bags here, though.
so,
It's funny coming from Hampton.
so
just wanted
the
to run a
next
meeting.
applicant was Richard, and still may be, Dell'Aquila, who has been very diligent, but unfortunately, that which he submitted was beyond the deadline. And you're welcome to make a statement, but we're gonna have absolutely no discussion on it.
So,
Okay,
Richard Delaquila.
and Richard, we're doing that not as a punishment to you. There were other folks who were in the same situation. We have to be mindful of the public's right and opportunity to see stuff. So I'm sorry it's caused delay. You've been very responsive, so.
Yeah, so,
Please.
I mean, I'll just, I left Connecticut at 6 o'clock this morning, so I could work here all
Yeah,
day today,
I'm
and I'm driving
sorry.
home tonight for my son's birthday party tomorrow.
Yeah,
And we talked last time I was here, actually, I think everybody, for the last prior 2 meetings, was fine with everything with regard to the house. There was
Mhm.
discussion around getting the parking situation
Mhm.
right, and as I think Chris mentioned last time, I've been trying to make this work for everybody, because I need to have functional parking. I obviously have the code, which I get, and I think everything I've put forward complies with the building code with regard to parking. I also, as someone who's already been here for 8.5 years, I want this to be right. So my hope is at a minimum, I mean, and I think we made this clear last time, the only thing that I had to do was get this site plan back, which I actually had FedEx to you guys. Jackie called me today at 1 o'clock. It was supposed to have been to you guys on Thursday. I was not aware until today that it didn't get to you on Friday. This is the same that's been submitted. So I'd at least like to make a statement.
Yep,
I don't know if I
please.
can come back again anytime soon. I need this, I mean, this is the only thing that's outstanding.
Mhm.
And I don't, as I've said, with regard to the house, we've discussed it before, there's nothing controversial. Everything is, to match existing conditions, and there's zero impact. It was only getting the parking situation right. So, and I think if we discussed it last time, the request was, would I consider doing a horseshoe drive, which is what I've submitted to you here, and showing it with, with the vehicles. And so I would ask that you consider that, and I don't know what else I have outstanding, to be honest, to consider.
Well, your statement is duly noted, and we are bound by our procedure, though not to discuss it. So it will be moved to the next meeting. Whether you want to be here for that, well, I guess you should be, right, Alice? Or somebody representing you should be.
That's up to him.
That's up to you. Otherwise, we'll take your statement as it is now. We can discuss it the next meeting.
Can I ask just why it can't be discussed?
Since it's just the site plan, you could consider discussing it tonight and holding the record open and voting on it at the next meeting.
Well, okay, so,
But we need opportunity for public input on what you submitted,
Right.
because it wasn't a timely submission, that's why.
I understand that,
Right.
but, I mean, this is, there's been no, there's been no controversial issue, and I completely understand that, I'm not,
But
but.
barring any,
so let me speak if I may. So, the fact that the public may or may not appear doesn't mean that there's not necessarily controversy. And in this situation, being familiar with this street, that actually it's more than just the horseshoe and parking. I think that changes the look of the street. I think it's an unnecessary and architecturally detrimental addition to the house. The house does have a driveway. You'd mentioned that your father-in-law can't drive straight necessarily, and I appreciate the fact that going down a long driveway is not the easiest thing, but on the other hand, taking away green space in that area, I think is a loss to the neighborhood. And so I would not vote for it to approve that. We spoke in the past about you putting on reinforced, I forget what they are, egg crates or whatever they're called, to maintain the green. And at one point, I thought that's where you were moving, but apparently you would rather have the curb cuts. I don't know for sure, but I assume since you present them, that those curb cuts are legal. But,
They are, we discussed it
okay,
last.
so I assume they are, but on an architectural standpoint and from an architectural board review standpoint, I would not vote favorably on that. I think it unnecessarily takes away green space from the area.
Okay, I'd like to comment then.
No, I'll let the board members
Okay,
speak. And not to be demonstrative, anyway, argumentative. We're setting up a process where you have a chance to make a statement.
I
board-
heard,
the-
absolutely.
Right, okay.
Yeah, no problem.
So,
Sure, I've seen that drawing.
have you folks,
I don't think
Are
Mark
you-
has seen any.
are you familiar with the property at all?
Yeah, I was here for the last meeting.
Okay. So, no, but it wasn't presented last week.
This
Was it?
just,
This was
Then-
submitted,
then
it
no.
was received on Friday, apparently the delivery got late
Yeah.
to you
So
guys,
then
it
you
was
haven't
supposed to
seen-
be to you on
So I
Thursday.
haven't seen
But
it.
are
Was
you
it-
familiar with the property itself? Have you driven by?
I have not driven by, if that's the case, I have not
Okay.
driven by that.
All right, I would suggest that you do. And I would suggest for all board members that, and this is not to chide you, but there's a lot at stake here for the people coming before us. We owe them the sacrificing or the comparable respect of checking out their property. Okay, John?
Yeah, I live on Halsey Street, right up the street. If this were a narrow lot, I think I'd totally agree with you 100%. But the fact that this is a wider lot, and where the house is as in relation to the corner of the street, it's not like it's halfway down the block and it's the only drive that would represent that type of a situation. I don't see an issue with it.
Sarah?
Because it arrived late and I thought we were not going to consider it, I have not looked at these plans.
Right, okay,
I have no problem with the driveway.
And I actually, in my recollection, we actually, I think, suggested
Yeah.
Yes.
this horseshoe
Yeah,
driveway,
yeah,
and
I-
so I think you're complying with the
Yes.
suggestion.
I took the suggestion, that's
Yes.
correct. And Jeff, you weren't at the last meeting, but we did discuss the geopaver. I talked with my architect, I talked with my landscaper, I looked into it. I said at the first meeting that you were at, I'm all for green space, and I think when you look at my yard relative to the other properties in the neighborhood, I have a lot of grass and green space. I want as much as possible. I have young kids. We spend a lot of time outside. We've been here already for 8.5 years. I also have to have functional parking. There's a lot of grass in my yard. I've done everything to preserve it. In fact, I'm taking some of the brick and pavers around the pool deck away to create even more green space as part of this. The geopavers, unfortunately, it's a great, I love the idea of it. When they get utilized, as we do with an active family, they break down very quickly and it does not look good. And I do need something that is functional, and that's what we've done here. And like I said, I've done, I've gone down satellite maps, I've looked at I've looked at the properties in the area. There is no doubt in my mind when you look at this, that the coverage, I've dealt with massing voluntarily. I could build a garage as of right. I'm getting rid of another accessory structure because I don't want massing on the property either. I want the green space. I've also looked at other homes in the neighborhood. There are homes on much smaller lots that are utilizing either horseshoe driveways or parking courtyards. I think that, everything I've done is entirely consistent with the neighborhood, and I'm trying to, remain within the spirit of what's going on here. Now, this is something that, as we discussed last time, is really a building code issue, but I'm trying to, I respect and admire everything that you guys are doing for the village. I'm not trying to do anything inconsistent with it. I'm not, like I said, I've been here for a long time. This will be my kid's house one day if I play my cards right, but this is, the only thing I do want to say in my defense is, I don't, I'm coming myself. I've presented to all of the
understand.
meetings myself personally, with 2 working parents and 2 young kids with a lot of things going on. It's a lot of work, for me to be doing this, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful of the process.
No,
But-
we appreciate all those things.
This is,
The,
in fact, it was offered to be approved. Each of the last 2 meetings, you guys offered to approve it. I could have had it approved, and according to the building department, I would be fine because this is under their jurisdiction, and I voluntarily offered to come back again.
so whether it's, we stand between the code, what can be built, and a building permit, or at least approval, okay, what should be built. So, it's more than a code issue, it's an aesthetic issue, and that's our purpose. It's not to be discussed, it's not debatable, that's what it is. You've made your statement to the contrary, I said,
No, but there is an issue considering Halsey Street that you're aware of, right? Which is that there has in the code been allowance for vehicles and for parking to be put in because you don't want
Again,
vehicles on the street.
the code can say, okay, thank you. The code can say what can be built, we stand in the middle to say what should be built, okay? So, there's a difference of opinion on the board, okay? I personally object to it, because I think it unnecessarily takes away green space. The fact is that you do have parking according to code, and it's not that you must have functional parking space. You must have the parking space that the code says, which you do have without that. So those are, but I don't want to get hung up in the technical stuff. I think I sense from the folks, other than Mark, who hasn't seen the property, that you probably have
Let me
three.
correct that. I actually did see the property because when I drove by, because it's on the piece of paper, it says for construct second story.
Mhm.
I don't think I had the background that was the parking issue. I didn't.
So, my sense is that you will get 3 positive votes. So in that case, I will put it up for a vote. So I move that, and by the way, when a motion is put forward for approval, it's really the same thing as saying I'm putting the motion forward for a vote, okay? Because, and in fact, anybody can put even if they disapprove, they can put a motion forward to approve. It doesn't mean that they have to approve, it just means they're putting it forward to vote. So, I will put forward a motion, unless you object to me doing so, okay? Okay,
I think there's a reason I would object at this stage.
you
I'm their counsel, not
Okay.
yours.
Okay.
Okay, no,
Okay.
I,
We
we all live here.
either vote or you request an adjournment.
No, I mean, I would appreciate it if we could put it forth to a vote, thank you.
So I move that we,
Jeff,
Yeah.
we said we were gonna keep this open.
oh, that's right, darn.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we
yeah.
not have- You
No,
can.
no,
drop
you're
one
100%
now,
right.
And you can approve it next time.
Right. Okay, so you don't have to come back,
Okay,
okay? You can spend time with your kids,
okay.
okay? You can't start any work,
I'm not gonna, at
Okay.
this point, no.
so, okay. So would this be a request for an adjournment, or is this, the board is,
No, we're holding it open.
we're holding it?
Our own motion.
Okay, so do we have to move it?
Yes.
Okay, so I move that we hold the application of Richard Delaquila. Close?
Yep, that's right.
Delaquila, at 227 Halsey Street to construct second-story addition dwelling and accessory structure, which I guess includes the driveway at this point, until our next meeting on December 14th. Do I have a second on that?
Second?
Okay, do I have any nays? No? Okay, so it will be held over to December 14th. Okay,
Okay, so
Thank you,
December
Richard.
14th, and then it'll just go up for vote, and,
Yeah,
Okay.
just vote on it at the next meeting.
Just the public has to see it, that's the only reason. right?
okay,
Yeah.
understood.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for allowing me to discuss it.
okay.
I
Thank
appreciate it.
You are welcome. Okay,
How old will your son be?
6.
6.
Wow.
My daughter's turning 10 next Wednesday. so-
Wow.
All right, good. All right, thanks, Richard. We'll see
Thank you very much.
see you on the street, okay?
Likewise, thank you.
Okay, thanks. So the next application is Woolley Street Properties LLC, 162 Woolley Street,
Which has also been adjourned.
which, well, is now, I guess we should be saying, will be held over at the board's,
Oh,
because,
The
Uh,
material was,
I'm sorry?
Incomplete.
You're right.
The
So,
file is
yeah,
incomplete.
so whereas the file is incomplete, the board moves to hold over the application of Woolley Street Properties, 162 Woolley Street. Do I have a second on that?
second?
Okay, we have a second from Sarah. Do I have ayes?
Aye.
Do I have any nays? No, so the ayes have it, and it's unanimous. That will be held over to December 14th.
No nays.
Okay. Next is TDC 270 LLC, 270 Toilsome Lane. Okay,
Evening,
So-
members of the board.
good evening. Introduce yourself, please.
Brian DeSessa, 2462 Main Street, Suite 7, Bridgehampton, New York. Attorney
Brian
to the applicant.
DeSessa, okay.
We brought small sets instead of the big sets, if that's easier.
And the gentleman behind you that's in a mask, is he your bodyguard?
Yeah.
Charles Angone.
Charles?
I needed help.
I was
worried.
Bridge the gap.
So, you know, gentlemen, I just want to restate something, because this has presented a problem. We've chided you for coming before us. But I just wanted to reiterate that as far as we're concerned, there's nothing on that property. Nothing exists on that property. What you're presenting is a plan as if there's nothing there. Which means that the same discussion that is taking place on the other cases could take place here. It may, may not. And
No,
again,
and to that end, we submitted a full landscape plan in the package, as
Right.
well as a site study
Yep.
from the second floor
Right.
deck.
okay,
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we're-
That was
we're-
crystal clear last time.
we're good. Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen,
So we did,
Floor is
if you have the
yours.
smaller sets, I can pass them around. They also include the landscape plan. You have these in full-size setage for the meeting.
Yep.
if we need it. So we did, a couple of questions just to hit those points from last time. Starting first with the site study, there was a second floor deck that
is
we're
that what time
proposing.
it is? 11:15?
No, it's, that's an hour ahead. It's 10:15.
Oh, okay. Well, that's-
It does feel like 11:15 though, I'll tell you that.
It does. It's got an hour of my life back.
It does feel like it, but
Thank you.
to go back, the board had asked last time when we presented the
That's
plan,
it.
we have a second floor terrace in the rear of the property.
Mhm.
So we did a study of the
Yeah, I have it.
surrounding area with sight lines as well as houses that currently contain second floor terraces or areas in the neighborhood. The property on, both properties on either side, you'll see are outlined with the red, contain the same, as well as 3 properties to the rear contain the same, so it's common in that area to have that. As well as with the mature screening, it does screen sightlines and views into other neighbors, or our view into their yards and their yards looking into our yards, in terms of the screening. You had asked us with respect to the previously submitted plans on the architectural set, we did this as well. This was a sightline study from an average 6-foot person the chairman had asked for, as to looking from different heights or views from the area to show privacy would be ensured through the neighbors. We did also,
Sorry.
So,
you
yeah,
said-
help us walk us through that.
There wasn't a deck on the original,
there was not a deck on the original, so that's, there was a deck on the proposed that we had now.
right,
So
current,
that's why we had asked, the board had asked us to
right.
go through that and look and take some photos as to what the view from the proposed deck would be.
So let me just, this is on this page here.
This is the second page, this is the one I have up.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So which is your house?
So our house is the one the photo that
Standing
you're
on
taking
the
from?
deck.
Right, you're standing on the deck,
Yes,
and you're looking,
And it's the neighbor's yard.
to all the neighbors' yards,
okay,
as well as Charlie put together the schematic as to what the sight lines would look like from having someone stand on
Okay.
that deck as to where the line of sight would be if you were to look that way.
and that's, is that
Also
in,
visible
That's in the
from street.
corresponding on the top of that second
so
page.
wait, I'm seeing western, okay,
On the top of the second page?
yep. Mm, Yep.
So almost have to look at it this way.
Yeah.
All the lots are on an angle.
The top diagram will be looking
Yeah.
towards the rear yard, and then the lower diagram will be looking to the side.
Okay. Alrighty,
Board, we had a cupola proposed, it was, had more light and natural, we toned it down in this version as to an architectural feature, so there's slats now across that instead of glass, which was previous, so it kind of blends more into the house and doesn't stand out as more, which was a concern raised from the board last time on the front elevation.
I believe there was a finial that got removed.
Correct, the one on top of that. And then, although it did make on to the rendering, we had proposed to remove all of the shutters on the rear elevation of the house, since they were to be non-functional. That is proposed, they would all be removed on the rear side as to the board's request as to having non-functional shutters, so they would all be removed off the rear elevation of the house.
alright,
And then there's a full, you had small versions that were submitted to you, a full landscape plan with screening and otherwise that is to be proposed on the site, which was submitted in your package from Michael Derrick of Landscape Details.
and that's part of the submission in the file?
That is, correct. That was submitted last week.
Yep,
um,
Okay, yep,
At the recommendation of the board, since we were starting over, we did
Okay.
a full landscape plan
All right.
to supplement what we had.
is that it, Brian?
That's what I
Okay,
have
good.
from last time.
Peter?
yes.
What do you think?
I think it's fine, but I want you to take off the cupola.
Okay, Sarah?
I also want you to remove the cupola altogether. The idea was not that it was a lantern, but that it was an inappropriate, design element in the front of the house, rather than being a focal point if the garage was the rear. Doesn't make any sense.
John?
The issue I still have is with the terrace, and this is the reason why. If you, looking at it this way, you would assume the houses are of all the same height and so forth. The house you're talking about first of all, the orientation has changed to be consistent with the neighbor, to be turned in a way that shows a different angle toward the view of the neighbor. That, in addition to the house, the new house being, actually the foundation is higher than the neighbor, and the fact that the ceiling heights are much higher than the ranch house next door makes the terrace that much higher than what you're showing as an existing terrace in the neighbor's house. So unless appropriate screening is added to the west side of that terrace, and it's viewable from the street as well, based on how it's positioned on the property now, I just think it's a privacy issue for the neighbor. And it's a huge deck. It's a pretty big, it's sizable.
Yeah, I walked all the way, it's a big deck.
What we in past have called a party deck.
On the landscaping plan, on the west side of the property, what am I looking at? It said new 4 to 5 foot hedges, existing 4 to 5 foot privets. Is it and then you have, you're removing arborvitae, you're putting in privets. Privets are deciduous, as opposed to arborvitae. Arborvitae, I know, can become expansive, but they can also be trimmed. And, I mean, the privet, I mean, the different varieties of privets, some keep their leaves a little bit better than others, but, would you consider putting in evergreens along the west side?
Some kind of year-round
Yeah.
screenings what the board's asking, yeah.
But you see what I'm referring to, right? On those, even here, you can pretty much see how much higher the terrace sits than the neighboring house.
Understood. No, absolutely. So we gotta look into that shared property line screening to ensure privacy.
And that would have never been considered before, because the original house that was approved didn't have a terrace at all, so.
That's correct.
And and also the garage is on the other side,
Right.
so it would have been on the other side.
We would consider that, yes.
Mark?
I share the same cupola issue, actually. Having walked the property and looked at it, it looks out of character and incorrect.
We would be happy to, in response to those comments, remove the cupola and add a deciduous screening to that.
Evergreen.
To that side. Evergreen, yeah.
That's one of my big issues, is just protecting privacy of
Yeah.
neighbors. That's,
Absolutely.
So, gentlemen, with that, I think, I don't hear any further objections, so what I'd like to do is suggest that you ask us to adjourn to the next meeting, at which point you could show us the design without the cupola, which you volunteered to remove, and the landscaping plan with evergreen on
on west.
the west
West
side,
side.
yeah. And what's the issue to the south side? Is that an issue as well?
There's taller screening on that side,
Yeah.
and it's on the opposite, the house shields the terrace from that side as well.
Because the houses are on an angle, it's a different
Yeah,
issue
it
for
kind of
both
blocks,
sides.
the house blocks that neighbor's side.
Okay,
Would you remind me of the material of the roof?
Cedar?
Cedar shingles.
I need to say that I realize that we don't have quote punitive powers, but I have felt very uncomfortable being asked to quote cure something that has been so, to me, baffling, how we got to this point. And I just need to make that
No,
statement.
It's total disrespect to the community and the zoning board and the ARB. It's like, it goes across the board.
well, hopefully that will not happen again, Brian.
No, I've spoken to the contractor, so I don't like to be standing here telling you that, so.
Oh, come on, we love seeing you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, good. All right, you like seeing Brian? Fellow attorney, right, a nice guy?
My neighbor,
Really?
We do,
it's my friend. Okay.
Wait, now you're pushing the envelope here. Okay, in which case.
I would ask for that adjournment.
I had a feeling that's what you were asking for.
Yes.
So I move that we accept the applicant TDC 270 LLC, I'm not gonna read all the other stuff, to adjourn to our next meeting on December 14th. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, do I have ayes?
Aye.
Is there a nay, per se? No, so,
Same submission deadline, correct? The Thursday
same
before?
should be every Thursday, because otherwise,
We'll make sure it's there. Have a good evening, thank you very
all
much.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Charles. TDC. So remove one and raise screening on the wall. All right, so the next one is 105 Hetty Creek Lane, and that is being held on account of the file is incomplete. So I move that we hold over the application of 105 Hetty Creek Lane due to an incomplete file until our next session on December 14th. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Do I have ayes?
Aye.
Do I have nays? No. So Antoinette and Alice, that gets held over. By the way, could folks hear me through the mask and my mumble and everything else? Okay. All right, the next application is that of 63 Howell Street LLC. Okay, and that is to construct a two-story single-family dwelling and detached garage. And who do we have before us? See you, if you can introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, my name is Yu Liu. I'm the architect for 63 Howe. This project was presented in front of the board 2 weeks ago, and the board made suggestions to me, and I made the changes. Number one, we did the streetscape,
Okay.
and
Okay.
this is the streetscape, and then the house that's mine is this one on Williamsburg. This one on Howe Street, this one is on the Pelham Street. And this is along Pelham, this is along Howe.
Okay, so again, can you just point to your house?
This one and this one.
Sorry. Is it this one? And then what about on the Howell Street Vista?
This one is on Pelham.
I'm doing it upside down, okay. Yep,
Yeah,
okay.
This one is on Pelham.
Pelham, right,
And this is the street, and that's across the street.
okay.
And this is on Howe, and this is Pelham. I drew a little street sign.
It's a corner lot, right?
Yeah.
Right,
So-
okay.
Okay, so, and then the elevation changes. The last time the board has concern, I believe, one is the roof, front of the
Mhm.
roof has 2 pitches.
Yep.
And then I removed that, so it's 1 pitch. And also another one is that the board is concerned that this is a gable, and it should be like less mass, like less volume. So I turn it into a hip.
Mhm.
And the board also is concerned over this gable, which gives the third story appearance with the
Mhm.
window. So I lowered it, and no more window here.
Mhm.
And on the side elevation, so the this is the front elevation changes. The side elevation changes is oops, where did I put it? It's confusing when I look at it upside down.
Yeah.
You know, what caused me so much confusion is the fact that the new entrance is on Pelham Street. I kept looking at it the wrong way.
Okay, so on the side, it used to be a gable with various pitches, and then I believe board object to that, so I changed it just one line
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
roof. And the board also asked me to do the 3D rendering. Oops, where is it? Did we bring it? Okay. Oh, here it is. So this is the Palm Street side, and that's the Howe Street side. And of course, the board has told me before, don't put the hedges in the front, so I kind of push the hedges to the side so you can see the look.
That would be a continuation of the hedges all the way to the drive.
Yeah, there should be
Right.
like a privet.
I see, okay. All right, lady and gentlemen, we'll start with you, John.
I have no issue.
No objections, Mark,
I have no issue.
Peter?
The roof.
Okay,
I'm very sorry, CU, but I don't understand why you make the roof so complicated. It's a simple rectangle. What are you thinking? It is a mess. I don't, you got rid of the double pitch in the front, but now you have it in the back. I don't understand the side shed popping up. I don't understand the gable in the middle, no, there's no window. No, I don't like it at all. If you could figure out the roof, just a simple roof to go on a simple house, I think I would have no problem. But you got all these jigs and jags and gables and, well, what can I say? That's it.
I also have trouble with the roof, in particular, the pitch and the configuration of the north elevation. It starts out in one slope and then tops out and then continues in a different slope. I've never seen that configuration.
Which, I didn't quite get it, which drawing you really referring to?
I'm sorry?
Which elevation you?
The north elevation?
This one?
Yes.
This one, what you see is in the background, you don't see it. Because
Well, you see the pitch. You see the.
You don't see it from the north at all, it's one flat roof.
No, but you see it from the rear.
You see it from the rear.
Yeah, you see it from the rear, but it shouldn't be really visible at all. I'm giving you the view that you will see from the street. You don't see that, and then it's just a shed roof. And I don't see why it's bothersome.
And the same little flat top on the south elevation?
Yeah, because now the rule changed, right? We only allow 5% flat roof of a whole total area. So I need to lower the roof to meet the goal. So yes, it is. If I have this roof all across, is a simple pitch, it won't work. So it has to be broken.
Well,
it won't work from what, from what
From
perspective?
the zoning.
Because you have to have a certain pitch.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
well, what would happen if you just put a hip roof on it and then modified it, you know, for the architectural events you might want to happen?
But,
Like you're-
but you have to read the rule is 5% flat roof. I used to do flat roof, and then it's just one big flat roof, and we can have the pitch very evenly all around, and it's very easy to do and very simple to do. I understand that why you're asking me that to do a simple roof, but there is a rule here that you can't have more than 5%.
More than what?
You cannot have more than 5%.
You mean for the flat part?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why you need a flat part. I don't understand that either. I don't know why you can't
But-
just have a hip roof with a ridge, and then do
But
your.
you cannot, the pitch has to be 7.5% higher. You can't have a shallower pitch either. So my hands are tied, so in a way.
No, they're not tied. you have to rethink the volume. I'm sorry, it's part of your job as an architect.
So, so the only issue seems to be the roof lines. As much as I like simpler and perhaps a simpler roof, at least visually, on the rendering and the street plan, I don't find it objectionable. I mean, I find it ideal, but I don't find it objectionable. And in light of some of the other houses, especially when I look at this streetscape, I think in some ways, this house is simpler. If I look at page S2, in some ways, it's a simpler house than the one on Pelham Street that's immediately to the right.
Yeah, that's true.
Or if you look at the one on Howell Street, that is simple in one way, but it looks more, it looks longer than it is tall, and then, of course, you have ranch houses, which are great, but and I live in a ranch house, and but at the same time, I think we have to recognize that this area is changing, and that is this construction conducive to how that area is changing. And personally, I do not object to it. But again, that's me. I'm one vote. I hear the two gentlemen here having no objections. I hear the two of you perhaps objecting. So I suggest, unless you are seeking if you're locked into this, then I would suggest putting it to a vote if we're not unanimous all the time. So,
Yeah, I would like to.
okay. So I move that we approve the application of 63 Howell Street LLC, 63 Howell Street, to construct a two-story, single-family dwelling and detached garage as submitted. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Do I hear ayes?
Aye.
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 Nay?
Do I hear nays? So we've got 3-2, and Antoinette, could you make note of who was in favor and who was opposed? So it takes 3 votes, and you've got 3 votes. Good luck.
All right, well, one more.
Okay, the next application. And let's see. Okay, so the next application is Thomas Appio. Did I pronounce that correct, or Appio?
That's correct.
Which one? Appio, all right. And is that you?
No, that is the client. I am the architect, and this is Brad Grossman,
Okay, so let's get your name first.
Anthony Hobson,
Anthony Hobson,
H-O-B-S-O-N.
yep, just like it sounds.
Brad Grossman.
Okay, Brad, okay. Anthony, thank you for being patient. Anthony was the first here and soon to be the last, and,
I told you to get
so,
Netflix before you.
yeah.
So it's the new life we live in, but thank you
Okay.
anyway.
So, in case you folks haven't heard, so you've got 5 minutes.
We have affidavits?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Oh,
Alice?
yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Sorry about that.
I've been doing this to everyone tonight.
Right, she's good.
I'm gonna look at these and then I'm gonna ask you to have a
Just wait for that procedure, Anthony. So, now, just
I've got 'em.
You got it.
Just for clarification, this is a totally new application, because this house is, I've been on the board for 5 years, and I think in one form or another, this house has come before us, and I'm not even sure that they had approvals and then never acted on them, but I could be mistaking it for another house, but in any event, you're here now, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we have 160 Breeze Lane, and we're looking to do a rear addition. As you can see through,
So let's just clarify, so is it, because you did a good job of presenting existing and proposed, is there anything changing in the front? And I think,
This is-
let's deal with the front, and then we can work our way towards the back, okay?
yes, sir. Let's look on page X201,
201, yep,
number 4, existing west elevation.
okay,
What we're looking to change is the front entry porch roof.
oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Anthony, you have everything, and Brad, everything should be facing us.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's gotta be in a little bit.
In the middle.
There we go.
How's that? All right. I can work upside down.
Here, use this.
All right. So we're looking to,
There you go, thank you, Anthony.
all right, so we're looking to revise this roof elevation to somewhat reflect what's happening here at the existing garage, which you could see on page A201. That's a few sheets back.
201. Okay.
All the existing stuff up front, all the new stuff
So
in the back.
A201, yeah. In the future, it's a little bit easier if it's matching elevations, like, you know,
Okay,
old east, old west to new, I'm sorry, old, you know what I mean. Okay, so wait, I'm looking now at A201, okay. So X and A, gotcha, okay.
so the attempt was to make the existing shed dormer that's on the front of the house reflective of what's happening around the garage. The client likes the pitch of the existing garage roofs.
Mhm.
So you see on the lower elevation here, this is kind of what I came up with. And we've had a lot of back and forth because due to the coverage, I was only allowed to make this roof proportion as wide as you're seeing it right now. So it's about 6 inches wider than the existing one.
Mhm.
But the slope is matching of the existing roof structure over here.
And the material?
Material is cedar roof that matches the existing house.
Okay.
I'm staying true and tried to the house itself, nothing's changing as far as material.
Okay,
But the client just wanted to have more of a reflective roof pitch versus this little shed dormer. He
yep,
kind of,
yep, mhm. Okay,
That's
Has
really
a
the only
outhouse
change on the
feeling.
front of the house, right?
yeah.
okay, gotcha,
The bigger changes happens in the back.
okay. So show us before and after.
Okay. Before,
X201 and A201.
that's right, X200 and A200. Keeping the new proposed on the bottom and existing on the top. Okay? So you can see to the far, let's say, my right, your left, the existing structure has a gable roof over a double height space. Actually, no, this is double height space only on the front side. So this is the living room that you're seeing here. The client wants to push out that same proportion, about 18 feet towards the pool to gain a double height space on the other side of the living room.
So you're just essentially just bumping out that space and adding a pergola to the back, right? Or a overhead.
We're popping out that space to the back, double height space, and we're adding a full-length trellis
Trellis, okay.
with one section of it under a covered bluestone patio. That's open, that's not enclosed.
So the roof line itself pretty much stays the same.
Roof line stays the same. It might need to be shifted slightly because the interior partitions don't line up.
Oh, right.
So in order to keep the window in the bathroom, I had to literally chop the roof and slide it over slightly. I don't know if I told you that.
Surprise.
But to make the symmetry work, that's what we have to do.
Okay, that's it?
For
Yeah,
the
I mean,
most
that,
part,
that, that's
it,
good.
really.
Okay, good. I guess we'll start with you, Peter? Okay,
I have no objection.
Sarah,
I think it's fine.
John,
That pushover was floored me at first, but yeah. okay.
Mark?
No objection.
Okay. No objections on my part. I appreciate the fact that you're using cedar and sticking true to the materials. I think that's admirable and helpful. So with that said, I move that we accept the application of Thomas Appio at 160 Breeze Lane for the construction of an addition to the rear of the dwelling. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there any public comment? I didn't see anybody, so. And I'm sorry, I should do that as a matter of procedure. So again, to move to approve the application of Thomas Appio at 160 Breeze Lane to construct an addition to the rear of the dwelling and construct accessory pool house. Did we see the pool house?
The pool house that we have, there's a pool house there now.
Yeah,
And in order to get the square footage that we want, we've had some back and forth with the chief building inspector. So we had to trade off the size of the pool house in order to make this work. So I had to
Yeah.
reduce the scale of that pool house.
yeah,
And it was hard to get it to, I mean, the pool house that's there now kind of looks like a dog house.
mhm,
So
mhm.
we kind of had to lighten it up and modernize it a little
Yeah.
bit to make it work.
Yeah, okay, it's pretty,
It's fine.
it's pretty innocuous. All right, so, again, moving to, accept and approve the application of Thomas Appia, 160 Breeze Lane, to construct an addition to the rear of the dwelling and construct an accessory pool house. Do I have a second on that?
Second?
Okay, second from, we'll take it from John. And ayes, those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, any nays? No, so that is approved unanimously. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Well done.
So,
Thank you.
okay? Okay. You are welcome. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to move our schedules to start these things earlier. Okay, the next application is that of Jared Abrams at 117 Pulaski Street to construct a two-story single dwelling, family dwelling that is, with attached garage and accessory pool house. So, and while I recognize you, even with the mask on, you must identify yourself. Charles, what's your last name again?
Angona, A-N-G-O-N,
A-N-G-O-N-A.
O-N-A.
You don't have any family that lives in Ridgefield, Connecticut, do you?
Possibly. I don't know. Not that I know of, though.
Okay. Oh, actually, no, they're in Conus with a C.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Oh.
David?
Right. Yeah,
do
after-
not have them.
Okay, so we'll check the file.
Yeah,
I have
thank
it.
you, because we don't want to send you home.
There'll be two black guys tonight. Okay, so we can go through them.
Okay, I don't see it.
Oh,
exactly.
what's this? No, that's the application.
And there's a FOIA.
What's it, no? You've got all the addresses. Charles, this is not looking good. Oh, wait, what do we got here? Charles, oh, here we go. Disclosure, well, no, this is the disclosure affidavit, application for public hearing.
And there's a FOIA, and that's all.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Oh, man. Oh, wait, what's this? Dang, I hope everyone. Oh, wait.
I see the mailing list, I handed you that, but I don't see what goes with the mailing list. Do you see it?
Not in what's been given to
That's all there
me.
is.
I'm happy to look if you want me to look.
Okay. Please do, here's the whole file.
Yeah,
But I don't see it in there.
Charles, who do you think submitted it? Your office? Thank you.
And here's there's a letter that's put in from a neighbor.
That came in today?
Not if we don't have jurisdiction.
Is that the support letter that came in?
well, you haven't had to wait that much longer because you were here just a few minutes
If you
ago.
already have your sleepers on. Oh dear.
Happy neighbor, everybody knows like that.
That's a supportive, that's the letter that came in today, right? Yeah. Yeah. That goes in the file, I think. Yep.
Is it warm in here?
It is.
It is.
Oh, yes, it is.
Very,
Yeah,
very.
is there anything we can do to turn that on? I always,
Oh, I didn't even.
yeah,
I
no.
think that it's the noise that they've just.
Charlie, there's a noise.
We put the one back there on.
Oh, yeah, if you could do something to circulate some air. Thanks, Kat, I
Sorry.
appreciate it.
Sorry.
We don't have jurisdiction without
Until
it.
they're submitted,
Yeah.
I understand. In that case, I guess I apologize. for taking some time.
Yeah, sorry, Charles.
Next time.
We'll have to repost and do the mailing again.
You'll have to do it again?
Yes.
Okay.
Good, I'm glad I'm not crazy.
Well,
I
that's the
am
way, that's
crazy.
it. Is that it?
Just a little.
Sorry, Charles.
All right, thank you. Have a great night.
Okay. So inasmuch as there are no affidavits of posting or mailing in the file, we do not have jurisdiction, and therefore, he is required to repost, right, Alice?
Correct.
Repost and remail. Now, if they, and they actually have to repost and remail as opposed to just come back in with an affidavit that they had done it
Well,
previously?
we noticed the date of today,
Oh, okay.
and that's not the date they're being heard of.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Thank you, Alice. Okay.
Full of cherries today.
The next and final application in the non-historic district is that of Donna Zilka at 28 Raymond's Lane to construct a two-story, single-family dwelling with attached garage and accessory pool house. Thank you. Okay.
Alice,
So,
here's the.
hold
you wanna
on a
look at it?
second.
Affidavits for this one?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Off to a good start.
So, lady and gentlemen,
Good evening.
if you could each introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Donna Zilka.
I am William Steinbrecker.
DJ is my architect, and I am building a house for myself and my children.
So, the way we're running the process is that you folks have a few minutes, 5 is better than 10, given the hour. And then we'll solicit comments from the board. You can then rebut or respond. And then we will open it up to public comments. and after we hear all the public comments, then you can respond in toto to the public response, public comments, and then we can have a discussion between us.
Mr. Chairman, we should probably note that because this is pending before the zoning board for relief, that no matter what happens here tonight, we cannot vote.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Okay.
The
realize that we
building
sort of,
department, though, said that I should go ahead with this and.
Right,
and-
okay.
and
yeah, just to get the, get
The lay of the
process.
land.
Okay, right, okay,
Yeah.
all right, good. So,
Noted on our agenda, and it should be.
And it should be.
okay. Thank you for that, Alice.
So fun.
Okay, so, William or Donna, either one of you can proceed.
So we are, so there's an existing dwelling that we are going to remove, have demoed, and we're proposing a brand-new structure. It's a two-story, well, first of all, the property is on the corner of Roscoe Lane, Raymond's Lane and South Roscoe Drive. We're proposing a 3,320 square foot two-story dwelling with an attached garage of 576 square feet, an accessory pool house of 180 square feet. The proposed dwelling, which is on this board, will be traditional shingle-style colonial residence.
And the shingles will be
There's-
natural?
The
color?
shingles are, they're white cedar shingles with a bleaching oil. And we have an asphalt roof. I actually have some samples if you'd like to see.
Yes, that would be
So
good.
I'm looking for completely traditional.
That's the bleaching oil. And I have a couple, the roof shingles are just sort of earth tony, architectural style. We have double hung windows, white frames, white grills on them, simulated divided light, generally 6/1, or 8/1. It varies depending on the size of the windows. The trim is all going to be white AZAC. All the trims, and this cornice will be in the gable ends as well as above the first floor windows and in the gable windows of the residence. Bluestone patios in the back. And that's pretty much it as far as, it's a pretty straightforward, traditional type of a
Can you
house.
just take us around the house in terms of the southeast and west elevation?
Sure, so, if you want to, I have some of these pictures that I could go with, but do you want to see the, I'll show you the 2D to start with, I suppose.
It's a corner lot essentially, right? It's on that
It's a
curve.
corner lot, yes. So the north elevation, which is Raymond's Lane, is right here. This elevation, this is the south elevation. On the same page. And South Roscoe Drive elevation is this east elevation.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the west elevation with the garage.
Okay.
And if you wanna, you can see I have these renderings. This. So here's the north. Well, this is obviously, this is from this view is from the corner at the turn, so you see both the east elevation, yes, South Roscoe's here, then Raymond's this way. So I gave you a view cut away with the hedge, and then here's a view with the hedge. Over here is the north elevation.
You're pointing to the south, but okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, south, yes. That's the rear. Here's the east elevation, which is the South Roscoe Drive elevation, and the west elevation. This one below, it's just more with the
Right.
cabana and the house next to it.
All right,
This house, the original idea and concept was mine. I wanted it to be simple, very functional for my family, 4 exactly the same size bedrooms upstairs, so nobody's jealous. And my
Literally.
room- So really, and my room on that L, so that nobody's above me and makes noise. and it's a little bit away.
You thought about this, right? It's a well-thought-out house.
Old in this house. Next to me, there'll be room for convertible for a nanny, for a nurse, for me if I need it. And I've lived this with my parents. I took care of them till last year. I know what it's like. And the attached garage, if there's snow or bad weather when I'm really old, I'm confined to the house. Otherwise, my kids, hopefully, can do what I did for my dad to take me on drives every day. That's all it is. It's a family house. I hope I can build it.
I thought you were gonna say you'd be confined to the garage, but I, yeah.
Sarah, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to John, and then we'll go to the extremes.
The only thing that I have a problem with is on the south elevation, you have, on the second story, you have a bank of windows. And on
Yes.
the second story, you have 2 smaller windows flanking a rather large window. And I think it would be a better design, and I would feel better about it if you have a dividing line down that window. So that big chunk of glass.
This
Oh, right, I see.
let's fold this back. What are we talking about?
We've had similar situations on another
So you're
building.
talking about this bank of windows here with the flanking?
Yes, so the one on the second floor of that bank of windows,
Mm-hmm.
you've broken up the mass on the ground floor, basically. But in the second story, I think it would be a better design if that central window were divided into 2.
A little bit more separation between the two.
No, if you actually ran
Mullion?
a mullion down the middle of that one.
That one,
Yeah.
gotcha, to match
So
sort
it
of that.
mimics the one on the lower floor.
Okay,
It matches.
yeah,
in a
I see what
better
you're saying, yep. Yeah, this is a 2-story space, actually, that, the stairs, it's a stairwell and southern facing to one door, but,
It seems to
That-
be a design element that
Yeah.
we're seeing now. And
yep,
and if you do
I
that.
can agree with that, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
I think that's a great suggestion. The only issue I have with the back of the house is, and we've, had this issue come up, quite often, is about the privacy issue of the neighbors behind. So do you have is there a landscape plan that shows how that sight line would be mitigated, or?
Well, there are already,
Yeah,
over
there's,
there
yeah,
are huge,
yeah, we might be able to,
firs, or trees. I don't know how to put them, but.
so, let's see, well, this is the western property line, which is,
But the southern property line is huge.
Let Charlie
Oh, okay,
zoom in
okay,
on
let me
that.
see, so
It's
you
a
can
south
kind of
elevation.
see
Yeah.
on this picture, some of the backyard.
Got it.
Uh,
Okay, so there's a tall hedge there.
There is,
Very
there's,
tall.
there's tall hedges around the whole property.
My
Very
only,
mature.
yeah, my only other comment is, this house has a really prominent position as you're driving down
Yes.
Roscoe, and it splits and goes around. I almost wish, and the first story will likely be kind of covered because you'll have hedges going around. The
Mhm.
second story, I almost wish there was some way to just dress it up a little bit somehow. It seems, I mean, it's simple, which is great, and that's what
Yeah.
you want, but it almost seems a little too,
A little too
a
simple?
little too simple for how it, I mean, that house is gonna have an impression
Yeah.
when you drive down Roscoe Street. So whatever you could do to maybe just zhuzh it up a bit, is that a technical term? But, you know,
I don't think that's an
No.
architectural. Well, I think
I don't know how that would be, but,
we've had a little too much ginning up.
yeah,
Too
Well,
shushing?
I mean,
we had just the opposite issue earlier,
We
but,
listened to that.
but you know what I mean? It's,
Okay.
but I'm not,
but that would not prevent me from.
Yeah.
right, so yeah, I'm not sure I'm not saying how you do it. I mean, there are lots of things you could do, but
I'm not sure
you know,
they're
you-
necessary.
yeah, I mean,
It's that part kind of.
you could add shutters, you could add buttresses onto the, whatever they are,
I don't know,
coming from, to the,
We don't need them.
to the eaves and, things like that, but
It-
I don't know, I think you're taking,
Simplicity is good.
No, it is. I don't get me wrong. I think it's fine
Yeah,
as it is.
yeah.
It's just, I think of that street and
Yeah.
how it makes such an
It,
impression.
it is, it's gonna.
a lot here will, I suspect that there's gonna be a fair amount of decorative landscaping, that will,
Yes.
will enrich the front. And, I mean, I can just imagine a row of hydrangeas and
Absolutely.
boxwoods and
Yeah.
things like that, so,
How could you guess? That's exactly right,
So,
that's exactly right.
yeah, I think simple
All right.
is
And I
good.
also think the light colored, because I really chose the light colored
Yep.
shingles, it's less stark, it's not like a,
Yeah.
I'm in you, 1950s.
No, totally.
Right. Mark, any comments
Oh,
from you
yes.
on color?
As someone who is just finishing a house on a corner lot in a Roscoe neighborhood, what I will tell you is I have the same thing. When you come around the corner, you see the facade of the house, and you go down to the side. And this is not a criticism, it's just a comment. I feel like, similar to John's comment, I felt like the second story of the front of the house was a little under-fenestrated compared to what I see when you turn the corner.
Mhm.
And I feel like, I don't know that there's balance to the front and to the side when you make that corner. And because you're so prominently located, and when you have a corner lot, people do get two vistas when they go by. So I don't know, and it may be for the very reason that you're making all your bedrooms the same size, which is such a wise choice, that prevents some of those windows from being bigger, but that would be my only comment.
Okay.
And it's really just from the front of the house on the second floor.
Yeah. Okay.
So, all right, so you've heard from the board now, let's, if you folks want to take a seat for a second.
Sure.
We'll see if any public comments, was there anything in the folder? Was that?
Well, there's a letter to the file, November 6th, stating that it's not in the Roscoe subdivision and that, was this from you?
That was for me, but it was for the ZBA.
Oh, okay, fine.
I
Oh,
think Ms.
them.
Conrad submitted that to
Right.
this
That
file.
was a
Uh,
carry
The
on.
accompaniment
In response
to
to Ms.
her.
Conrad, it was in response to Ms. Conrad's email to the file of the ZBA.
Right. Okay,
With all sorts of things, like I'm a developer,
Right.
I'm not.
Right,
I
right.
really am not.
okay.
So we
All
don't
right.
really
So that's
need-
irrelevant to
This
our-
is right,
Good,
exactly.
okay, good. Thank
All
you.
right, so, are there public comments? I recognize you, and I will recognize you. So, as soon as you give us your name.
Certainly. It's Fred Weinford, and I reside at 45 Roscoe Drive. And my compliments. It's a very nice-looking house.
Thank you.
I wish 31 looked like that, but I won't go there.
Please don't, no.
Sorry about that. The only thing that I have is I know a variance is required on this because the house is actually about 17 feet wider than zoning code allows. And although I admire the house very much, I think it's going to look quite wide on that lot. And I know this isn't your area of responsibility, but, and I will voice this at the ZBA, but that's my only concern. Very nice-looking house, it fits our neighborhood wonderfully, but it's a little too wide for the lot, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Right.
you.
Thank you. Thanks for staying.
Right,
Thank you.
thank you. So Donna and William, you can, yep, you can come up and,
The house, and I'm glad to meet you, and then Paul pointed you out, my builder.
you too.
I'm not making it very high, you know, our floor heights are low, they're not 10 feet, 9 feet,
They were
they're
actually
9
4
feet.
feet
Can you
below.
just address your comments to
Okay.
the board, please?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. The,
your back doesn't offend me, but it's a matter of protocol.
the house is gonna be exactly
No, it has
the
to be.
same width
Yeah.
as the old house. The house now has a shed that's 10 feet from my western neighbors, who I've got to know and who are thrilled that I'm doing this. The house itself is 33 feet from the property line. We're moving it to 43 feet.
Yes.
So we're just moving the whole house to the east, but
9
it's
feet.
not any wider than it was.
Right, and
Is
the
the
property
problem,
itself
is
lends
the
to
problem because
the-
you're a corner lot, you've got double setbacks?
We do. We have 2 front yard setbacks of 40 feet, so it sort of lends to the way the design ended up, because it's a long, narrow piece that, you know, the buildable envelope, so,
So we're sort of moving it to the center
yeah.
of the lot, and my neighbors are thrilled, because right now, there's a shed that's 9 feet from the property line that we're getting rid of.
Well,
Well,
that's before the zoning board, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's not our issue.
yeah, so in terms of the style, I think what you're hearing from the board is that it's a design that is compatible and, you know, subject to the ZBA. I don't know how we phrase that,
We have to hold on.
Alice. I
Yeah,
mean, we're not gonna vote, so it's just,
I wasn't sure if we were asking for any plan changes, first of all.
Landscape plan?
Okay, so we want a landscape plan, so the file's not complete.
That are the sight lines from the second story window.
We should adjourn and, you know, we can hear this again if you don't have your zoning board, but we should probably wait until you do have your
Okay.
zoning board.
Yeah, and I
So-
think by the next meeting, we should have it,
Okay.
so.
And
That
it's
would be
pretty
fine.
well priced, honestly.
Okay. Well,
And then an actual landscaping plan?
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Please.
So, in which case, of course, I lost my whole schedule here. I move, oh, there it is, there we go. I move that we adjourn pending decision by the ZBA, as well as the applicant submitting a landscaping plan. The application of Donna Zilker at 28 Raymond's Lane to construct a 2-story single-family dwelling with attached garage and accessory pool house. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Mark is a second, and John?
Aye.
Aye, and there are no nays?
Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
for bringing materials and.
Oh, sure.
That's
They
good,
help a
that
lot.
helps.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank
Thanks
you,
for putting all your
public as
time
well.
in. Long night for all of you. Clear the decks here.
So the first application in the historic district was that of Thomas and Meredith Joyce, which the applicant, unless I'm wrong, John, has put in a request to adjourn, correct? Yeah, that's adjourned. I showed it on my agenda as Joyce being adjourned.
Oh, Joyce?
Yeah.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
thank you.
John, at the last meeting, and I don't know if this is, if you'd listened to, we had said that if it was going to be postponed again, we thought a reposting and remailing was necessary. I don't know how long you're going to do it, but when you get a better sense,
Absolutely.
okay, of when you do it, okay.
I think that's fair.
Okay, thank you. I had a feeling you would, John. Okay, so I move that we accept the applicant's request for adjournment of Thomas and Meredith Joyce, 765, acknowledging that there will be a requirement for reposting and remailing prior to the next appearance.
You could shoot it in January or February.
Um, So, John, how do we do that, Alice? Should we ask, John, why don't,
Well, we could just use December as a control date. Is
okay,
that
well, you know what, we just then keep it on the calendar, well, I guess we have to keep it on there unless John puts in a request to adjourn it to a specific date, right?
Let's just adjourn it till December 14th.
Okay.
If Mr. Bennett needs to adjourn again, he'll submit a
We'll let you
letter.
know.
Okay, all right.
But I understand for whatever date it'll be.
I'm marking my calendar, John. You and I have a date, okay? All right. All right, so I put forward a motion to adjourn the application of Tom and Meredith Joyce, 765 Hill Street, to our next meeting on December 14th. Do I have a second on that?
Second?
Okay, a second from Peter. Do I have ayes? Do I have nays? No, so therefore it is adjourned. Thank you, John. Thank you, board. Then we have two BHNH LLC, 109 Hampton Road. Okay, to construct additions. Okay, so, John, go again, introduce yourself.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you again.
Good.
I'm Erica Jimian. John Bennett. This is our...
Noreen Hobart, one of the principals, is with us this evening.
So we are back again. This will be our 6th visit, and we hope it's going to be positive. It's my understanding that we have distilled everything. Everything's been approved. Everything's kind of going good for us, except we're still talking about the dormers. If you want to talk about anything beyond the dormers, we're happy to explain to you. But
And you have had the benefit of the input from your historic consultant, which you didn't have the last meeting.
Yeah, we wanted to really build on Zach's statement last time that he thought that historically this was appropriate. And
So I think one of the things that you have to look at, and I know sometimes this raises some levels of uncomfortability with boards, but it is the law in the state of New York that you have to treat similar applications in a similar manner. So I did, and I brought these out the last time, but I think they really bear restating, because anytime you wanted to talk about what we're asking for here, which again, I would just really implore you, is a relatively small ask, given all the, the money and to redo this in the way that it's, wood shingles, and taking away some of those very inappropriate skylights. I just want, this is a house that went through a lot of back and forth before the Architecture Review Board, and it's right as Hampton Road. It's on North Main Street, which is also one of the entrances of the village. And I know this house extremely well, because I lived across the street from that on Skinner Street for about 12 years at 261 Skinner Street. This is the Aquino house. This house is a very, very authentic, arguably Zach, you looked at this house. It's arguably pre-colonial. I'm not pre-colonial, pre-revolutionary. This is an old house for Southampton. It's probably like 1760s, 1770s, or something like that. And so the main part of the house obviously is clearly of that age. But then in the back, and I know it very well, there's an addition, very typical of what you'd see of these homes, with the addition off the back. Maybe 100 years later, but still very, very old section. And I said to myself, gee, why am I having so much of a problem with dormers it seems like such a small ask, given all the money that's being put into bringing Court Smith's house back to a beautiful house. I said, I remember on Skinner that I drove by there, and there's this wonderful job being done to Skinner. That Skinner and North Main Street house, which I think everyone can be proud of. It's wonderful that people are putting money into that, which is, one of the entrances to the village, and does have some really wonderful historic fabric. Did somebody let them put a dormer there? And then I drove by and I said, well, hell, not more than that. And I was looking for aerials, trying to figure out what was there before, and sure enough, here it is on the approved plans. So you have a house here that, look at the significant changes that you allowed to be made. And I don't know whether or not the core of this was saved or it was taken down, but that's a significant change to the fabric of a very, very old contributing structure. Contrast what we're trying to do here. We're trying to take off a lot of these wildly inappropriate skylights and really lovingly bring this house back to something that everyone in the village could be proud of. And really the only ask that we have on the fabric of the original house is those 2 dormers. So I thought that was very interesting. I don't know how you have to be consistent in what you do. There's a whole body of case law on that. And I don't know how you could allow someone to do this, which I think is wonderful, by the way, because what you're doing is you're saving that sense of place and that whole historic fabric of this, but you're allowing something to be done. I want Eric to read a quote that we took from the Interior Secretary's guidelines on how to deal with these houses. But I don't know how you could say yes to this and no to that. And then, of course, and people sort of wince when they see this because it was so very public, but I was involved in it, and so it raised a lot of concerns. But and Jeff, you were here. This is that old Betts house, Nakamoto, and that's the existing elevation before the approval. This was what was approved, and this is what Arthur Frazier came back and drew. And it was an actual substantial, I mean, you'll remember, Jeff, that Rod Coburn voted against this because he thought this was a better following of the guidelines, because you could take this off and still have the original structure. But as wonderful as Arthur Frazier's drawing or design of this, it really cuts into the historic fabric of the house. So I'm just asking for sort of a level playing field here so that we can have these 2 dormers. They started out in a way that Zach and some of the board members didn't like. I think they cut down.
It was 5 of them. There was one continuous level, and it originally broke the fascia.
The fascia, it broke the fascia.
So we lifted above the fascia, we broke it up. And so and again, we'll remind you, this opens up the stairwell, because it's got a low stairwell. And and in the master bedroom, it now has 2 big skylights going in to bring it light. And it actually kind of opens up that space, but we're getting rid of those skylights to add these dormers. And if we can't have the dormers, we'll need to keep the skylights because we need light into that room, because it's a dark room and the walls come down very low on the side.
So think of it this way, we are touching the fabric here, but the way it's been touched in the past with those skylights is clearly a much more radical departure from what the house was originally built.
And we will be getting rid of it has an asphalt roof now, and it has a bunch of layers. We're going to be returning it to the Yankee gutter as requested. So we'll be returning it back to it, close to its original use, and I think that should be a good trade-off to kind of give us back this space.
And not to be forgotten, I think we were very, very malleable, and actually very much appreciated the board's input on the addition
on the back. I think actually that's another example of where, working with the board, that we ended up with something probably superior to what was originally there. It certainly is from a height point of view. Peter, thank you for that. From the height point of view was much better, so. Again, I don't know what to say, but I think it's just, we wouldn't be here the sixth time on these dormers if we didn't think that they were really necessary and a fair trade and a fair request.
We put a dormer next door on Elm Street. I'm sorry, I should have a picture of this, but I'm just realizing that. We put a dormer in the middle to give it, because it actually was sort of a flat roof. And if you look at this vision, this image here, you're doing the same. On Elm Street, which we've gotten a lot of praise for, we put a middle dormer in, which was actually in a closet, just to kind of sort of brighten up the house. And I think this actually does brighten up the house. We're repeating the historic windows of, from below up here. So there's a continuity there, I hope.
But read that quote from the interior. Do you have that? I think it establishes essentially, very much falls right into what we're trying to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, I'm not, I know it's a regulation and a law, but Eric found it, and
Well, I
Can
mean,
you
the
find it? I
department,
think
there's preservation, there's rehabilitation, there's restoration, and then there's reconstruction. And I think this falls in rehabilitation, because we can't preserve it as what it was, because there's not a specific time, and it's only the main house that's historically, has historic details to it left. Anyway,
if you could
the
find it.
rehabilitation is,
Slow down, because read it. Slow down and read it without, with,
rehabilitation is defined as the process of returning a property to a state of utility through repair or alteration, which makes possible the efficient contemporary use while preserving those portions and features of the property which are significant to its historic, architectural, and cultural value. Can't breathe on this mask.
that's okay, take your time.
So, but I think the important thing here is returning a property to the state of utility and making it contemporary. And it just is the fact that the owner wants this to be a contemporary house for their family. And,
We don't
we're
mean contemporary in
rehabilitating the
terms
house
of-
by making it to keep it residential and keep it for a family.
I was also glad to see this isn't an office district, and every one of those houses, some wonderful houses on that row there, every one of them has turned into something other than the originally intended use. I think Dr. Monkwitz has done a great job what he's done with that house, but nevertheless, it's not a house. It's that was a judge's house many years ago, Judge Lippitz's house, and now that's an office, and it just is sort of falling that way because it isn't an office district. So you have someone who wants to make it a residence. It's in a way a little bit reminiscent of, I forget, is the White House near Catina's, just to the north of Catina's? I thought someone was sort of crazy when they were, right on that. It was a residential, it was a commercial zone and everything, and lovingly redid that house. And I think the board had some flexibility there. The part of it, the front of it was maintained and pretty much rebuilt stick by stick. Have a little bit more integrity here, fortunately, but I think you want to encourage people who are going to take old houses that could be turned into other uses, and allow them. What I think is, I hope ultimately you'll agree, it's just a little bit of a way.
Thank you, Eric and John. Sarah, would you like to
I would like to.
weigh in?
To suggest that actually what I thought you were doing was using restoration rather than rehabilitation as your standard. And I thought that also by agreeing to keep the porch that was added in 1910 or the 1880s, that might serve as your particular time period from a restoration standpoint. And given that perhaps some archaeological exploration or even photographic exploration could be pursued to look to see, you know, what the materials were at that given date. And I haven't talked with Zach about this, but given the fact that the things are, the entrances that are being restored, that might be a good date, which falls into your purview. So I was wondering, I mean, even, do we know that it was shingle at that time? Do we know that it was a shingle roof at that time?
What part of that, Sarah?
About 1880, 1910, when,
I'm not being facetious when I say what else would it have been?
I don't, you talked about the many layers of roof. roofing
Now they have a new asphalt roof just on top of
on
it.
top of
Yeah.
it. So I mean, I was wondering about exploring.
I don't think this is restoration though, because restoration, you have to bring it back to an original time and
Not
and it's
necessarily.
museum quality. No, that's,
I mean,
that's my understanding of it.
what we've done is to choose to protect and recognize the accretions that have been made over time.
But I wanted to go back, I'm just having, I wanna understand the roof,
I'm
the roof
just,
material, maybe I'm missing something, because the roof material could not have been anything other than
Right,
wood.
would have been wood shingle.
Would have been
so
wood
it's
shingle.
wood shingle, okay,
Yeah.
fine.
No.
There's certainly a way of determining that, but I mean, you're gonna come up with,
There's no way this was anything other than,
Okay.
asphalt shingles didn't exist.
That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
That was a question that I was establishing.
It's
the problem with
being a builder's son.
It's
dangerous.
Well, it's also the trouble of having a degree in historic preservation, and I think that if I were on the board, many of the things that you suggested might have been different, but that's hearsay too. I mean, as far as the Makamoto, I think that it might have been a little different. The reason why I think that there should not be any changes to the roof on the east elevation is that it's the only elevation that really remains intact. The western elevation of this building has been changed over time. A dormer has been approved, one dormer on the west elevation I think the appearance of that dormer will be slightly obscured by the chimney. I don't think it's gonna be standing out, as the two that are being proposed on the east elevation. And I think that they're too large for that particular roof elevation. And I actually would rather see, if I had my druthers, a new and improved skylight rather than piercing that particular roof line with two dormer windows.
The front, we're not changing, Sarah, we're not changing the front of the building at all.
I'm talking about
No, you said it was the only elevation that wasn't being changed,
the
but.
east elevation of the roof line is what I'm referring to.
No, I know what you're referring to, but I
It's
think,
the east elevation
I understand what you said, but you
of the
said,
roof.
but you said that was not, that was the
only
only elevation was not gonna be changed, but that's not true.
I
The
think
really,
she
the
said
sig-
the only elevation that hasn't been.
That has
No.
not been changed.
I think that's what she was saying.
that's the signature of that's the only thing that makes it suggest
Mhm.
the way it's been talked about as some sort of, Greek revival. That's the only element of it, and one could argue about that, and we're not changing that at all. We're refurbishing it, redoing it in kind.
Well, and I'm commending you for choosing to do that. What I'm trying to prevent is the addition of two shed dormers that were never there before, and I go back to page 53, adding dormers where none existed previously should be discouraged, and that's,
One of the things that you have to do is you have to encourage people, though, and sometimes that requires flexibility.
well, I believe that we encouraged by the approval of the dormer window on the west elevation and the addition of a window on the east elevation. I mean, I think there've been some gives.
And very much appreciate it. And to be honest, if we could, I mean, we wouldn't come back 6 times. If we could get rid of these, it's just so integral into the use of the house and having it done well. And I do think dormers are contextual to this town and even that street. I mean, if you have a 2-story, I mean, dormers are, we're not asking for something that's never been done before or not common.
You've given
And
many
I-
examples.
And,
Not
I
at
mean,
the
this
same
is not, we're not trying to ask for something crazy, but, you know, we need this to make this house flow better, to make it
Right.
contemporary. I mean, I know people lived in it before, but this is a contemporary house now.
Peter?
Well, listen, I think you've done a great job. Everything is really nice. I mean, you're talented, you've done all the right things, so I can't commend you enough. I have the same hang-up Sarah does. It's the southeast view of that house is all that remains. It's all that remains. It's original. And it's a very prominent location. It's one of the few antique houses in the village in a prominent location. And I just want to preserve as much as I can. Now, if I were on your side of the table, I would be doing exactly what you are. But I feel like this is a board of preservation besides architectural review. And I think that when we have so few antique structures, you know, as opposed to Sag Harbor, which somehow managed to save all of them, and we have one, I mean, we have a few, we have half dozen. And this is one of them, and it's extremely important, and that's why I believe that. That's why, and also, you can decorate the inside. You can go to these show houses, they decorate attics with wallpaper and such, and when you paint it, it will not be dark.
Talking about headroom.
I was in there, I know, it's tight, but
This hasn't changed. You keep on saying that. This is the real gravamen, the focus of the house. I grew up in this village. When I think of this house, I think of this.
I think of the view. I mean, it's not a facade, it's a three-dimensional
It's a
object.
three-dimensional,
And every other view has been compromised by time and modernization, as it should have been, appropriately.
And we're bringing a lot of it back to that.
I'm bringing all of it back. And that's all that remains from the past, and that, I'm afraid, is my view.
This is you keep on saying that. This has been.
No,
this
that
is
view, the southeast view.
When you're driving west on Hampton Road, you see very little of
See
the
that roof,
easterly
you see
roof.
that roof and that wall, it's
No, you
very
don't.
prominent.
It disappears.
Listen, I've done it, don't tell me what I see, okay? Do not.
All right,
Respectfully
so,
disagree.
Mark?
Very small ask.
Okay.
Ah, in light of what you've gotten, we've given you so much.
Let's talk about this outside.
No, no, no.
I'm entitled to an addition.
I know.
Yes, and you
So-
did it
And you've gotten
beautifully.
it, and it's brilliant.
So let's hear from the rest of the board, and then, John, you can
All right.
rebut.
You probably think I'm a stalker, because I've actually walked around this house so much since the last meeting to stare at it. I thoroughly understand the argument of the east side roof coming in, because I drive into the village from that side. I also see that you've spent a whole lot of time and effort to preserve this house. I looked at the standard a little bit of two things. I looked at the standard of, is it restoration or rehabilitation, and read those statutes. And then I thought about 100 years from now. Because the mere fact that that house is here since, 200 years, I think it does behoove us to preserve our history. I also think it behooves us to encourage people to preserve our history. And I think that sometimes we have to work a little bit. I don't find the dormers any more offensive than I find modern skylights. And as a matter of fact, I think taking the skylights out actually improves the structure visually. But I guess from where I come from, while I understand your argument, the principal view of that house is actually on Elm Street. And I think if you're going to pierce the roof line on the Elm Street side, making the same restoration on the east side of the roof, I think I'd rather see that argument than more skylights. Because I think there was a period of time in all the restorations of this house where that could have been probable, whereas skylight would not have been probable probably before the 60s or 70s.
That's what we've been arguing.
So that's what I would say.
John?
I have an incredible, love of historic preservation and old homes and the history that's involved. And saying that the changes this house has gone through over the last, God knows, 100 years, I mean, it's not the same house that was built originally. And there's no doubt about that. We've pretty much proven it throughout this entire process. But I think it's important to preserve this house, as Mark said, for the next 100 years. And the alternative of not making it livable and giving it the utility of a family to live in it just opens the door for it to fall into disrepair and be erased from the history completely. So I think you've come a long, long way from where we started on this project. And I think I commend your patience. I commend the owner's patience in going through this process. And it's been a very important process because of the historic significance of the house, But I think this alteration is I think it's something I would give into to make sure the house is going to be here and going to, be preserved for the next 100 years.
I
The one
thank
thing
you
I
for
would
that, and I
add-
agree with that, because we are trying to, we are trying to preserve this house to the future. We're not trying to.
Marcus.
The one thing you said about old houses into other uses, if this were going to be into another use, I would have a different opinion. If it were going to be a shop, if it were going to be a museum, if it were going to be any other use, I actually wouldn't agree with it.
No, I understand. That's
But
my
I think it's
point.
the fact that we're encouraging development to preserve.
And that's an important thing.
Preservation has nothing to do with use.
Rehabilitation does, because they say
Rehabilitation
they
does.
want it to be the same use or like use, they want to keep that. And they want it to be part of the community too, to bring people in. So preservation does have something to do with usage. And you can't, that's just going into the future, it has to be useful, or it'll go into disrepair. And this is not, it doesn't have a historic significance beyond its placement in the town.
So, let me weigh in. And my view is relatively simplistic, that you have an historic structure and that we should preserve as much of the history of that structure that exists. And the concept of contemporizing it for either use or adding something that happens to be contextual to the village, nonetheless takes an historical structure and irreparably makes it non-historical. So my opinion is that you've made a tremendous amount of strides. As much as you say it's a small ask, if it's a small ask, then it's not a big thing for you to keep it as is.
Well, if you're gonna write a denial for these two, you're gonna have to tell your lawyer to distinguish the significant difference that, in your treatment of the approvals on these two.
If that's what,
I challenge anyone to do that, because that's what the case law says, Knight versus Amelkin. You've allowed this board, under this code, no changes in the code, has allowed this sort of thing to happen on houses. People were calling this the most historic house in the village. This house right here is older than that house probably by 150, 200 years. Look what you did. We're asking for a very small thing. And I would challenge anyone to write a decision that sustains the denial of this in the face of these two and others that I will find.
Sir,
Jeff, can I jump in here?
Alice,
I'm wondering why
let me just,
Well, I'd like to
Of
hear
course.
what the
no,
Zach
no, no,
says.
no, I'm the chair.
I
I'm not-
think you'll like.
Hold on, folks, I'm the chair. Alice?
I just wanted to point out that in the code for principles of compatibility, we are to reference the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, not restoration.
I'm sorry?
Rehabilitation, not restoration. So they were correct
His point.
in
So-
citing to rehabilitation.
Right, so,
So we are trying,
In my mind, rehabilitating something doesn't negate preserving something.
they
No,
are,
but there's
but they're,
two-
no, they are
there's two-
absolutely,
there's
there are
different
four different things.
standards.
There's preservation,
Zach,
rehabilitation.
would you like to say
We're getting
something?
the high sign from our videographer. I
Time?
think he's about to say
Well,
we're
hold
running
on.
out of time.
I have to change the tape.
Then-
Okay, all right, so hold
Sarah,
on.
you can-
No,
you
no,
can
no,
explain.
hold on.
Wait, wait, wait,
Talk,
wait, wait, wait.
Because it's not being,
How much time do you need, Charlie?
You can't hear you.
Oh, all right, sorry.
Speaking of,
You can bring that up, or whatever.
what time is it?
it's exactly an hour
It's 11,
better than that.
Oh, okay,
48.
so Zach, perhaps before you,
Am I right in thinking that the standards for rehabilitations were for historic tax credit projects?
Well, that's one application for it, but that's not the way the Department of the Interior considers it. I think it is important, and I'm glad, Alice, that you mentioned that our code specifically refers to that aspect of preservation rather than another, which would be restoration. Because no homeowner is expected to come in and restore their home back to something that it was or could have been or should have been, or there's a picture, et cetera. That's not the objective. It is that of preserving the houses. Now, you can argue the degree of preservation. This is, in my vocabulary, I call this house is no virgin. Okay. This one has gone through about 6 or 7 very apparent additions, changes, modifications, et cetera, which have modified all but one of the facades, or as John would say, one of the outside walls. But in any event, I'm looking at the bigger picture, and I guess my views have been stated and shared, but it seemed a little strange for me to be sitting here until nearly midnight with only one application on the agenda and not have the opportunity to say something.
No, we got one
With
more.
all-
We got one more.
And I'll be brief.
Sure.
But I'm thinking, this is a modest house. It's a 1.5-story house, which means the upstairs is compromised. Interestingly enough, there are no second upper story windows on the side walls. And so we're not confronted with a lot of fenestration. There are windows downstairs, and then there are blank walls above. And just aesthetically, it strikes me that windows punched into the roof is not disturbing to me. And in fact, it doesn't change the massing of the house at all. You still read that house. It's not bumping up an extra foot. It's not changing the appearance of that part of the building. And I'm looking at that in the context of the other addition, the large addition off the back relative to the existing house, and yet how modest that is with its very flat roof, which I think was a really exceptional choice. And so enlarging this house to function with those dormers does not seem disproportionate to what is being saved. All of this odd extensions to the west, it's all being preserved because it's interesting, it has character. But arguably, you could ask to do something else. You could want to change some of that because it's not really all that useful. It's just lots of little sheds. So to me, I think on balance, and it's not my job necessarily to balance it, that's your job. But the way I'm looking at the bigger picture is that inserting dormers, balancing them on both roof pitches, makes the house function. It essentially preserves the house as you see it, as you drive by. The entire front is being restored or preserved as it is. So I feel that it's an appropriate project. I don't see, and I am aware of some rather extreme alterations and extensions to historic houses in the village that have really visually changed the way they look. I don't feel this does. I think it's a relatively minor improvement, so. But I guess I already said that before, but I thought I'd say it again.
And Mr. Chairman,
Sarah?
last,
Let me just hear from the board. No, okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I drove 8 hours to be at this meeting,
Yeah.
this is the last meeting. But the last meeting you said that we had to wait for the 5th member to try our luck. And if you would have been a no the last meeting, we could have not come, we could have changed our.
And I wasn't sure where I was.
Well,
at that
I-
point.
I-
And I think I made that statement, but it's.
But I would ask you to
it's a-
think a little bit more, with a little bit more,
Right, in fact,
What Deborah would
I was
say.
gonna ask for a little bit more time to think, but not this evening. So,
This is our 6th meeting.
okay, wait.
so then if you want,
No,
as I said,
think we're-
my view is simplistic. You've got an historic house, you've done a great job of preserving most of it.
Yeah,
You
we
have
heard
a
that.
you have a chance to preserve a piece of history as it currently exists. To me, it's counterintuitive to take something that's historic and make it something that's not historic.
That's not what's
A-
happening.
And, well,
And your counsel informed you, and your expert informed you of the language of the code.
Right, so if you want to give me more time to research it personally, I will. If you ask me to vote on it tonight,
I hear what you're saying.
the vote would be negative.
I would just ask you to have an open mind, but I would also ask you to give weight to what the trustees wrote in their code. And it is a standard different than a pure, well, you already had your advice from both your counsel and from your, so I guess I'm gonna ask you a very difficult question, and you can answer it or
Then
not.
I may get, thank you.
But if you're
Yeah.
truly gonna keep an open mind, and you're telling me that you're still weighing it, and maybe you haven't decided to vote no on this, then we'll give you the time. My client's going like this, but we'll give you the time. But if you really just think that you're gonna end up voting no, you should tell us. So that's a tough, and you don't have to answer that, I'm just.
Right, so I want to do research. I want to do research from both the historical perspective, actually both, threefold, from the historical perspective, from the legal perspective, and from the village perspective and planning perspective. If you indulge me with that, I will come back. If you ask me what my opinion
No, I
is
know that, yeah.
right now, it's exactly what I
I
said.
hear you, so
So it's your choice.
And I just want to remind you that we are making these additions more historic,
I
because they're not historic now.
I understand everything that you've done. What's that?
The time to think about it.
We appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
So,
And to
and-
be very
and-
direct, Ms. Latham, I'd like you to think about it, and
Right.
Peter, I'd like you to think about
Right.
it too, again.
And, you know, the whole board, you know, for all
Well,
I know, that they could have a change of heart too. All right, so, I hear the applicant requesting an adjournment to our next meeting. Do I have a second on that?
All second.
Second, that's a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All say, okay, nay.
Great. Thank you all.
You are welcome. Okay, adjourned until December 14th, and Mr. Chair has to do some research.
It gets confusing, though.
Okay. All right, ladies and germs, we are now, the third application for the historic district is that of Woldon Manor, which has been adjourned. So, do I have a motion? I am making a motion to adjourn the application of I can't say it, Walden Manor, 16 Gin Lane. Do I have a second to adjourn that? All right, second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? No. All right, Antoinette, you have that? That's adjourned to the 14th. Thank you. Okay, finally, the final application for this evening, okay, is that of White Fence, Inc. at 409 First Neck Lane to construct a wood deck and pergola. Now, I'm, first, if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Jennifer Gass with Danielle Romaldo's.
I'm sorry?
Jennifer Gass with
Right.
Danielle Romaldo's Architects.
Jennifer, thank you for being so patient.
Thank you for all your hard work and diligence and long night for you.
Very nice. for everybody, so, applicants as well. And I know this isn't always easy for folks who put in a lot of time and effort and passion in what they do, and that's not lost on us. So with that being said, Jennifer, now, is this a continuation of all the ones, or this is a new application in
New
which
affidavits.
we have an affidavit? Okay, good, because we had signed a written decision for something earlier on this property. Okay, so this is new. Jennifer, the floor is yours.
All right, so at the back of the house on the west facade, we had 2 stairways coming down to the lawn, and we had removed the deck at a previous application. We want to now, the 2 stairways coming down was getting a little messy, so we want to have one deck and add a pergola, because this house has no outside space, outside covered space. And so for reference, floor plan wise, this is on First Neck Lane. And then, so this is completely in the back of the house area. And the extension of the deck is pretty much what it had been before, with just a pergola at one portion of it, which you can see on A101. And then on A502 are the details of our pergola.
So A101, okay. That is on the, okay.
The columns used are matching the columns on the existing kitchen porch area. There's this existing door that comes off of the hall, off of the kitchen. And we're keeping all of that, and we're just building this pergola around it, so it's very clear what was existing and versus what's new. We don't want to have any of these.
So where is that on your plan?
It's this little entry door here.
I see.
Which slide are we on? Okay, I see.
This one here? I just want to ask you a question. So there is a post holding up the corner of this little projection, and what is that?
Correct, that's this.
So that's a square
Square.
pier with beveled
Yes,
edges?
yes. And that post is remaining, but that's what this new post is gonna look like as well.
I see, one new post.
One,
Yes.
Okay, that's it, Jennifer?
That's it.
Okay. I forgot your name, Peter. I'm so tired. Oh, I'm sorry, folks. Peter,
Fine with me.
okay, you're easy.
Can't add them all where you're down.
Yeah.
It's
Say-
fine with me because it's reversible.
Bingo.
Absolutely.
There you go. That's the principle.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
you're the
mean-
experts, you know what to say.
So, well,
well,
but I think that's important.
It
too,
is.
For the
it's
record.
very
what nails
important, unlike, I mean,
right, right. Okay,
Yeah, really.
dormers.
Jonathan,
No, I think it's lovely, thank you. That's-
Marcus.
I have no objection here.
Okay, so with no objections, then, as this is in the historic district, I move that we submit the application of White Fence Inc. at 409 First Neck Lane to construct a wood deck and pergola for written submission by council. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Oh, sorry, folks, I don't know how that happened. But, oh, God. Second, so we have a second. Do we have a,
Hi.
Aye, aye.
I am really
Ay, ay, ay.
sorry.
Thank you. It is so nice to have
All
a
right.
building respected and reversible,
Right.
and thank you.
So, Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks.
And with that said, and no other applications and no other issues that I think we care to
more
discuss
tea.
tonight, I move that we close this meeting of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation on November 9th. Oh, God.
Not the ninth anymore.
You're right, November, yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, November 9th, quickly. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and I assume everybody's in
Yeah, we're all
favor,
in
so
favor.
Oh, no,
all
let's stay
ayes.
another 8
Okay,
hours.
great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody that might be listening out there. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Antoinette.
Done?
Thank you, Alice. Okay, Charlie, please tell me when we are off. Okay.
What am I missing here? They sell the property and it just dissolves into the earth.
You can bring that up, or whatever.
Absolutely.
What time is it?
It's exactly an hour
It's all set.
It's 11 by.
better than that.
Oh, okay.
48.
So, Zach, perhaps before you,
Am I right in thinking that the standards for rehabilitations were for historic tax credit projects?
Well, that's one application for it, but that's not the way the Department of the Interior considers it. I think it is important, and I'm glad, Alice, that you mentioned that our code specifically refers to that aspect of preservation rather than another, which would be restoration. Because no homeowner is expected to come in and restore their home back to something that it was or could have been or should have been, or there's a picture, et cetera. That's not the objective. It is that of preserving the houses. Now, you can argue the degree of preservation. This is, in my vocabulary, I call this house is no virgin. Okay. This one has gone through about 6 or 7 very apparent additions, changes, modifications, et cetera, which have modified all but one of the facades, or as John would say, one of the outside walls. But in any event, I'm looking at the bigger picture, and I guess my views have been stated and shared, but it seemed a little strange for me to be sitting here until nearly midnight with only one application on the agenda and not have the opportunity to say something.
No, we got one
With
more.
all-
We got one more.
And I'll be brief. But I'm thinking, this is a modest house. It's a 1.5-story house, which means the upstairs is compromised. Interestingly enough, there are no second upper story windows on the side walls. And so we're not confronted with a lot of fenestration. There are windows downstairs, and then there are blank walls above. And just aesthetically, it strikes me that windows punched into the roof is not disturbing to me. And in fact, it doesn't change the massing of the house at all. You still read that house. It's not bumping up an extra foot. It's not changing the appearance of that part of the building. And I'm looking at that in the context of the other addition, the large addition off the back relative to the existing house, and yet how modest that is with its very flat roof, which I think was a really exceptional choice. And so enlarging this house to function with those dormers does not seem disproportionate to what is being saved. All of this odd extensions to the west, it's all being preserved because it's interesting, it has character. But arguably, you could ask to do something else. You could want to change some of that because it's not really all that useful. It's just lots of little sheds. So to me, I think on balance, and it's not my job necessarily to balance it, that's your job. But the way I'm looking at the bigger picture is that inserting dormers, balancing them on both roof pitches, makes the house function. It essentially preserves the house as you see it, as you drive by. The entire front is being restored or preserved as it is. So I feel that it's an appropriate project. I don't see, and I am aware of some rather extreme alterations and extensions to historic houses in the village that have really visually changed the way they look. I don't feel this does. I think it's a relatively minor improvement, so. But I guess I already said that before, but I thought I'd say it again.
And
Mr. Chairman,
Sarah?
last,
Let me just hear from the board. No, okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, can I mean,
Sure.
I drove 8 hours to be at this meeting, which is the last meeting. But the last meeting, you said that we had to wait for the 5th member to try our luck. And if you would have been a no the last meeting, we could have not come, we could have changed our.
And I wasn't sure where I was
After-
at that
after
point.
5 meetings?
And I think I made that statement, but it's.
But I would
it's
ask you to
a-
think a little bit more, with a little bit more.
Right, in fact, I
Deb would
was
say.
gonna ask for a little bit more time to think, but not this evening. So,
This is our 6th meeting.
Okay, wait.
so then if you want,
No,
as I said,
got
my view is simplistic. You've got an historic house, you've done a great job of preserving most of it.
Yeah,
You
we
have
heard
a
that.
chance, to preserve a piece of history as it currently exists. To me, it's counterintuitive to take something that's historic and make it something that's not historic.
That's not what's
And,
happening.
well,
And your counsel informed you, and your expert informed you of the language of the code.
Right, so if you want to give me more time to research it personally, I will. If you ask me to vote on it tonight,
I hear what you're saying.
the vote would be negative.
I would just ask you to have an open mind, but I would also ask you to give weight to what the trustees wrote in their code. And it is a standard different than a pure, well, you already had your advice from both your counsel and from your, so I guess I'm gonna ask you a very difficult question, and you can answer it or
And I
not.
may get, thank you.
But if you're
Yeah.
truly gonna keep an open mind, and you're telling me that you're still weighing it, and maybe you haven't decided to vote no on this, then we'll give you the time. My client's going like this, but we'll give you the time. But if you really just think that you're gonna end up voting no, you should tell us. So there's a tough,
So-
and you don't have to answer that, I'm just.
Right, so I want to do research. I want to do research from both the historical perspective, actually both, threefold, from the historical perspective, from the legal perspective, and from the village perspective and planning perspective. If you indulge me with that, I will come back. If you ask me what my opinion
No, I
is
know that, yeah.
right now, it's exactly what I
I
said.
hear you, so
So
what's
it's your choice.
And I just want to remind you that we are making these additions more historic, because they're not historic now.
I understand everything that you've done. What's that?
The time to think about it.
We appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
So,
And to be very direct, Ms. Latham, I'd like you to think about it, and
Right.
Peter, I'd like you to think about
Right.
it too, again.
and, you know, the whole board, you know, for all
Well,
I know, that they could have a change of heart too. All right, so, I hear the applicant requesting an adjournment to our next meeting. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Second, that's a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All say, okay, nay.
Great. Thank you all.
You are welcome. Okay, adjourned until December 14th, and Mr. Chair has to do some research.
It gets confusing, though.
Okay. All right, ladies and germs, we are now, the third application for the historic district is that of Woldurn Manor, which has been adjourned. So do I have a motion? I am making a motion to adjourn the application of I can't say it, Walden Manor, 16 Gin Lane. Do I have a second to adjourn that? All right, second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? No. All right, Antoinette, you have that? That's adjourned to the 14th. Thank you. Okay, finally. The final application for this evening, okay, is that of White Fence, Inc. at 409 First Neck Lane to construct a wood deck and pergola. Now, I'm, first, If you could introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Jennifer Gass with Danielle Romaldo's.
I'm sorry?
Jennifer Gass with
Right.
Danielle Romaldo's Architects.
Jennifer, thank you for being so patient.
Thank you for all your hard work and diligence and long night for you.
Very nice for everybody, so, applicants as well, and I know this isn't always easy for folks who put in a lot of time and effort, and passion in what they do, and that's not lost on us. So with that being said, Jennifer, now, is this a continuation of all the ones, or this is a new application? In
New
which
affidavits.
we have an affidavit? Okay, good, because we had signed a written decision for something earlier on this property. Okay, so this is new. Jennifer, the floor is yours.
All right, so at the back of the house on the west facade, we had 2 stairways coming down to the lawn, and we had removed the deck at a previous application. We want to now, the 2 stairways coming down was getting a little messy, so we want to have 1 deck and add a pergola, because this house has no outside space, outside covered space. And so for reference, floor plan wise, this is on First Neck Lane. And then, so this is completely in the back of the house area. And the extension of the deck is pretty much what it had been before, with just a pergola at one portion of it, which you can see on A101. And then on A502 are the details of our pergola.
So A101, okay. That is on the, okay.
The columns used are matching the columns on the existing kitchen porch area. There's this existing door that comes off of the hall, off of the kitchen. And we're keeping all of that, and we're just building this pergola around it, so it's very clear what was existing and versus what's new. We don't want to have any of these.
So where is that on your plan?
It's this little entry door here.
I see.
Which slide are we on? Okay, I see.
This one here? I just want to ask you a question. So there is a post holding up the corner of this little projection, and what is that?
Correct, that's this.
So that's a square
Square.
pier with beveled
Yes,
edges?
yes. And that post is remaining, but that's what this new post is gonna look like as well.
I see, one new post.
One,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, that's it, Jennifer?
That's it.
Okay. I forgot your name, Peter. I'm so tired. Oh, I'm sorry, folks. Peter,
Fine with me.
okay, you're easy.
Add them all, wear you down.
Yeah. Say-
It's fine with me because it's reversible.
Bingo.
Absolutely.
There you go. That's the principle.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
you're the
mean-
experts, you know what to say.
So, well,
well,
but I think that's important.
It
to-
is.
For the record.
very
wood nails
important,
gonna be
unlike stone. I mean,
right, right. Okay,
Yeah, really.
dormers.
Jonathan,
I think it's lovely, thank you. That's-
Marcus.
I have no objection here.
Okay, so with no objections, then, as this is in the historic district, I move that we submit the application of White Fence Inc. at 409 First Neck Lane to construct a wood deck and pergola for written submission by council. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Oh, sorry, folks, I don't know how that happened, but, oh, God. Second, so we have a second, do we have a,
Aye.
Aye, aye.
I am really
Aye, aye, aye.
sorry.
Thank you. It is so nice to have
All
a
right.
building respected and reversible,
Right.
and thank you.
So, thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks.
And with that said, and no other applications and no other issues that I think we care to
more
discuss
tea.
tonight, I move that we close this meeting of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation on November 9th. Oh, God.
Not the ninth anymore.
You're right, November, yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, November 9th, quickly. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and I assume everybody's in
we're all
favor,
in
so
Oh, no,
all
let's stay
ayes.
another 8
Okay,
hours.
great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody that might be listening out there. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Antoinette.
Done?
Thank you, Alice. Okay.